Welcome to Point Blank. I am Toni Thorne, and I'm joined by a noted Barbadian historian. He's also a retired lecturer, and he's a household name. He knows everything about Barbadians and Barbados and Barbadiana. Welcome to the show, Mr. Trevor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Toni.
Do you think that we have a skin color issue amongst the black community in the Caribbean?
Yes, very much so. We look at our advertisements. I can always tell a Barbadian advertisement. It never has people as dark as Rosemary Alley, Mia Motley, Toni Thorne. If I'm in Jamaica, I will see a black person like Usain Bolt on an ad. Barbadians haven't reached that point yet where we think that black is beautiful. And throughout the Caribbean, we know I think is an axiom. If you're white, it's all right. Even if you're beige, if you're brown, stick around. Look at our mannequins. Barbados is a prime example of the backwardness of our people. In mannequins, as people know, are those wax figures in our departmental stores highlighting the latest in fashion. In all of the Caribbean societies, the mannequins are as brown as Rihanna and certainly as dark as Toni Thorne. Yeah. It has changed a bit, but we still think of good skin, light skin, brown skin, young men still discriminate in Barbados against women like your complexion because they're bright, they're brainy, beautiful, but too black. Only in the Caribbean would you hear anybody of your complexion or mine describing someone as being too black. And that goes back to the slave period, of course. It stems from the fact that we hold European concepts of beauty and projections along with the straight nose, the recessed cheeks, and the Nordic hair and features, etc. So it is a given. I think, however, people might try to dismiss it, but we do have a skin color or a shade problem. It isn't a matter of color, it is shade.
I wrote an article recently and I spoke about the songs and how we promote lighter shades of black in our dub songs. And someone messaged me the Sunday after the article and said, you spoke about the dub songs, but what about the folk songs? Brown skin girl, stay home, my mind, baby.
That's from Bermuda, as a matter of fact. But it speaks to the rest of the Caribbean. Everybody in the Caribbean can identify with brown skin girl, stay home and mind, baby. From Cayman Islands to Guyana. Yes. And they would never have black skin girl, go home and mind, baby.
Folk songs have always propelled that kind of thing.
Yes, they've always projected that. I mean, the issue of color and shade is endemic in Caribbean societies once we have had slavery. A white mated with a black, you produce a mulatto. Mulatto mated with a white, an octoroon mated with white, a quadroon mated mustifino. And these are gradations which have remained in our societies ever since then. But I want to stress the point of being at school. Two children might go to school and one is lighter. Same mother, same father, and one is lighter. The girl who is lighter, but who's a dunce, gets preferential treatment from the teachers right up to the time she leaves primary school. In secondary school, it continues the same. There was a time when all of our Miss Barbados, Miss Teenager, etc. competitions were light skinned. In situations where children are being primed to meet royalty, British royalty. And I distinctly remember when they were choosing a primary school girl 1 year, about 20 years ago, one very prominent lady in government service said, we don't want anybody too black as to offend.
Up to this year, the Governor General was going to school and a teacher, he's very esteemed, very intelligent, he was told he could not meet a black Governor General because of his locks.
Don't forget that in 1947, a man called Swain shot and killed a young boy in a plantation in one of our parishes. And he was defended by the leading lawyer of the time, Grantley Adams. And the defense was he thought the boy was a monkey. And that was accepted. He went free. So we have that problem in Barbados still. We do have, and I suspect we will have it in probably 20 or 3015. As long as the society has whites, you will have white at the top, and that gradation down to coal black. In Barbados, we have called girls of your complexion Barbara Green, the asphalt, right? We've called them black and rough. We even have the term smooth black. We have so many terms, and we just roll them off our tongues without consideration in fact that you're insulting a person's self-respect, their self-image. So it is still a problem in Barbados.
Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Marshall.
I'm so tired of being black. Belly here growling. Gotta find a way to save some money. Save the money, well. You don't gotta save no money. You gotta go and party and enjoy yourself. Live your life. Big man, don't listen to you here. All you need is 2 forms of ID, proof of address, and 125 Barbados dollars. Take it down to the Barbados Public Workers Cooperative Credit Union and sign up. Start saving. Simple. You? That was a good idea, boy. First thing you're doing, asthma and
Me time is so necessary, and luckily I found a brand new indulgence in 4 wonderful flavors. I love coffee, but let's be real, too much of it isn't good for your health. I've replaced most of my coffee intake with the cappuccino flavored indulgence milk when I am on the go.
Toni Thorne Show, yeah.
A lot of the persons that I know who perpetuate this behavior are allegedly very educated persons. This is not an indictment on anybody with red and curly hair. I remember being 18 again and going to court, and I used to wear my hair in an afro. I used to twist it and on it do. And I went to court a time, and I remember sitting in the back, and obviously these are criminals in front of me in the magistrate's court. I was doing an internship, and the judge looked at me and he said, "You, what you doing in here? What you doing in here looking like that?" So I thought that with criminals in front of him, he might mean the criminals as opposed to me. And I quickly realized that he meant me. And he said to me that if I return to the court looking like that, having my hair twisted and undone with a bandeau with it pushed back, if I returned to the court like that, I would be held in contempt. And I often wonder if I had a different hair texture with that same hairstyle, if I would be threatened to be held in contempt.
I have never experienced anything that was drastic, but I think it's those subtle, small issues that over time would influence your perception of yourself. I remember going into secondary school and looking to see if I was the darkest person in the class, just so, like, if anybody was to tell me, like, if anybody was to insult my complexion, I would say, at least I'm not as dark as that person, instead of addressing them about the hurtful thing they would have probably told me.
I definitely think there are many skin color issues in Barbados among the black community. And to start with, when you say black community, most people I'm sure are going to start to think dark skin, but it goes way past that. It spans all shades and colors of black, because I'm sure some people would like to think that I have never faced any of these microaggressions. That's what I'm going to say, microaggressions, because fortunately for us, we live in a black majority society, so we face microaggressions. When I was at school, we used to talk about the Bajan passport. What's the Bajan passport? Well, to have a Bajan passport, you had to be red skin or brown skin. You probably had brown eyes, hazel eyes, green eyes, and you had curly hair. And that, the Bajan passport means you just get through with everything. All the boys like you, you were the center of attention. And it was like, if you didn't have those 3 things, you weren't anybody. And so for me now, people would like to tell me I'm brown skin. I say, no, I'm black, but you're brown skin, cool. And then one day I decided to texturize my hair, so all my friends you know, you have the Bajan passport. I'm like, no, I don't have the Bajan passport, I'm black. It was frustrating for me because I felt like I was identifying with them, but they didn't feel that way. The texturize thing even goes back into everything, because I only texturized my hair because I wanted to look like the Bajan passport people. That's the reality of it. And it was a contradiction for me, a conflict for me, because of who my father is. I grew up in a household where being black was beautiful. Africa was revered and looked up to and respected. Pretty much I grew up with people telling me there's nothing wrong with you, you're beautiful the way you are. I'm not sure when it changed, but I mean, the reality is socialization clearly played a major role outside the home. Socialization at school, television, things that you see, peers played a major role. It was so ingrained in me to the point that even sometimes today I feel like certain people won't like me because I'm not fair skinned with green eyes and curly hair. But I mean, I think it's a process that most females of color in the Caribbean are going to have to go through, a process of accepting who you are and loving who you are and loving what comes from you naturally. And when people say it doesn't exist and this and that, I say, for me, I think you're just in denial, because we're faced with these things every single day.
Yes, I definitely think that we have an issue with skin color in the Black community. I mean, I'm 32 years old and I'm still hearing backhanded compliments like, oh no, you're pretty for a dark girl. I'm just like, really? I was called to do advertisement for a company, and the lady looked at me, I had my hair like this, and out of all the people that were there, she said, I need to talk to her specifically. So in my head, I'm like, how can she need to speak to me specifically? She doesn't know my name. Okay, so I went over, she's like, can you do something about that hair? So I'm like, what do you mean something? She's like, we can't have it like that. So I was kind of like, okay. Mind you, I was ready, as I like to say, to fling up my skirts and get on my way. But because I was doing it for a friend, I decided, let me play this cool. She's like, can you scrape that back in one or something? I said, certainly. So there was obviously, besides the hair issue, there was obviously kind of a dark skin quota going on there, because the only person who was a darker complexion was me and another girl who came who also had natural hair. So she was like, when the other girl came, she was like, oh, it's a Rasta? You sure it's a Rasta? Because I guess she wanted to make it look as though she was being diverse. But just a sample of some of the things that have happened to me. Basically, you're put in a position where, because of your skin tone, you were relegated to a certain level in society, social strata. So I think a lot of people, even though they don't like to admit it, it's somewhere inside of them. Actually, maybe inside of a lot of us, if we think about who we're attracted to. I'm not saying that you can't be attracted to people of all complexions, but sometimes you see some person who's lighter skin and you automatically think that they might be better looking, not necessarily because of their actual features, but because you're programmed to think that a certain skin tone is better. That's as best as I can think about it.
I do believe we have an issue with skin color amongst the Black community. One perfect example would be someone I shot recently on a photo shoot. She was telling me her story about when she was younger, was bullied a lot. She would go to sleepovers with her friends, but one weekend she had to go to the beach, and obviously being in the sun for a long period of time, you tend to get a bit darker. And being young, you probably wouldn't understand why that's happening. So while she was with her friends and they proceeded to go home, they noticed how dark she was. So the next day, went to school, she was avoided actually, and she found out the reason she was avoided was because of how dark she became, how much darker she was. And they actually went on a sleepover without her, and it was devastating to her. It was from that day forth, she recognized color. She recognized that there was a difference. It was the way around. The darker you are, is almost, you're more beautiful. Your skin is richer, you glow in a sense. The series that I'm currently doing is called Project Melanin. It is supposed to highlight those of darker complexion. I found that people are walking around with a lot of insecurities, whether it's because of bullying when they were younger or outside sources such as Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. It is just to get people out of their comfort zone in a sense. I want them to realize that no matter how they may appear, that is them, that is who they are, and that they need to accept it. So a lot of the photos that I take, I tend to not use flash and I use natural light, so I can capture that true essence of their skin, so that when I post these images, there's no editing, there's no trickery of sorts with Photoshop or anything of that nature.
I remember when I was at college, studying at college here in Barbados, and I was having a conversation with some classmates, and they were having this conversation and they were telling me, oh, their grandmother would not allow them to date a person of a complexion like mine. And I was like, what do you mean she wouldn't allow you to date someone of my complexion? Because they were lighter skinned, and both, one was a male and one was a female, and both said, no, I could not take home someone of your complexion to my grandmother. I was in school, and the teacher, we were in class 2, and the teacher asked us, who in here is the prettiest girl? Because she had noticed some cliques in class, and you know, growing up, I recognized that the lighter skinned children with the softer hair were more likely to become the teacher's pet. And it also happened in the cliques. A certain complexion, they were drawn together. And one girl in the class had shorter hair and darker complexion, and she was being ostracized a little bit. And so the teacher asked us in class after lunch one day, who's the prettiest girl in here? And I was raising my hand, and I realized none of the other girls in the class was raising their hand too. So I pulled my back down, and everybody started pointing at this one particular girl, Indian type hair. And I was like, oh, okay. So then the teacher tried to explain to us, you know, we're all beautiful. No one is pretty. You are all beautiful girls.
I think that we have an insensitivity in the Black community, and we have deep-seated issues, yeah. I've been told that I will not find a Black man because Black men will not date me because I'm too Black. I've never heard of something called being too Black. So too Black isn't necessarily the color of your skin. I believe that too Black now is also your thought process, how you think. It's not even a skin issue, it's an identity issue. So apparently the only men that I can get now is white men, I've been told. It shouldn't be about, well, you know, what happened to dark people. It should be about what's happening to our Black people collectively. There's hurt across the spectrum. If I'm like skin Black and I choose to go towards Afrocentric way of thinking, people might think I'm not as authentic as the dark skinned person, which could very well care less.
In my teenage years, I started to feel a sense of independence, and I wanted to, you know, support myself in terms of my social life, etc. And, you know, wanting to make little extra money and not have to depend on my parents. And I wanted to do promotions, and I have been told to my face probably about 3 or 4 times, you don't have the look. One time I actually cried. I looked around me, and then I realized that I was the difference in the room, and it was disappointing to me because I thought that was the chance that I had because I was the different one, not realizing that I was the one they would not go for. I took it where I decided, you know what, I will not let this break me, and I started to love myself even more. I spent some time outside of the Caribbean, outside of Barbados, and I lived overseas in Colombia to be exact. And even when I went there, I found people were staring at me very strangely for like the first 2 weeks, and I asked myself, I wonder if this is the same feeling that I'm experiencing. And I asked a couple questions from different people, and they said, no, they're actually in love with the color of your skin. You know what? I'm glad that I did not allow those people who rejected me to break me down, and I was very happy with myself, and I started to love myself even more.
Hi, my name is Jamie Martinez, and I came from Puerto Rico to give you an easy steps how to create a whole look with the Maybelline New York products. I'm gonna create like a smoky eye, so make a round, but you have to take your eyeshadow all until there, to the crease. Take a nice amount of the eyeshadow and tap on your eyelid. This is gonna give you, of what you see over here is what you get on the eye.
A smile goes a long way. In fact, it may travel for miles. That's the power of kindness. Be nice to all, neighbor or visitor. That way, everyone's story of Barbados has a happy ending.
She's dedicated to
People all over are savoring the aromatic goodness of the country's favorite tea. Lipton is your brighter day in every cup. Enjoy the rich, uplifting taste and aroma. Perfect anytime, any place. Lipton Yellow Label. Get the feeling anytime, anywhere. And try our new green tea with superfruit.
Welcome back, and this is the Lipton sponsored Tea Time segment, and I'm joined here by some very wonderful, interesting members of the Muslim community. To my left, we have Dr. Abdul Mohammed, who's the president of the Barbados Muslim Association. Thank you so much for joining me. To my right, we have Miss Farhana Bobulia of the Barbados Association of Muslim Ladies. Thank you, Farhana. To her right, her father, Mr. Suleiman Bobulia of the Barbados Muslim Association. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, quick question, is it Muslim or Muslim?
It is Muslim. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of people say Muslim, but that is a misrepresentation of the word, and we should try to say it in the correct manner, which is Muslim.
Okay. Now, my first question to you, what are the key teachings and tenets of Islam?
Well, Islam, in summary, teaches you, most importantly, to believe in one God, worship one God and Him alone. We must believe in all His prophets and all the messengers, from Adam coming through to Solomon, David, all the prophets, many the ones that also Christians relate to, right down to Moses, Jesus, and last, the final prophet believe as Muhammad, peace be upon them all. We're going to believe in life after death, heaven, hell. We believe in the angels, God's created angels, and that's pretty much belief. And then the other things that Muslims that we're also obligated to do is like the obligatory performance of certain acts, like praying 5 times a day, fasting during the month of Ramadan, that's compulsory. If you can afford it
during the month of
Ramadan.
Ramadan, okay.
We go by lunar month, so it comes 10 days early every year. If you can financially afford it, pilgrimage at least once in your lifetime to Mecca, and also if you're financially able above a certain minimum amount of savings per annum, we remove 2.5% or give 2.5% of that towards charity.
Okay.
So those are the compulsory acts of devotion or as we are instructed to do. Also many other optional acts as well. Besides that, there are 3 other important things that Muslims are asked should do. And basically character. Character is a very important part of Islamic faith. Good character, social conduct, how you interact with persons in the community and society, and also business transaction and dealings in terms of honesty, trustworthiness. So it's almost a way of life. You hear over and over again, that's encompassing like family life, social, business life, prayer, devotion, belief, and that's basically pretty much what's expected of all Muslims.
What is it like practicing a religion which, in my opinion, the Muslim community is a minority? How is that living in Barbados and practicing a religion that is a minority? Are you discriminated against?
Definitely not. Barbadians are very accommodating in terms of religious beliefs of other persons, and as a Muslim community and a minority community here in Barbados, we haven't had anyone do anything major to us. I mean, we have been well accepted, or we can perform our prayers, we can practice our faith without any harm or injury. We do have small issues that do come up from time to time, and perhaps Farhana will speak to it in terms of women who are more visible because of what they wear, and so you have some issues there. You may have some issues where a person enters into Islam, not being a Muslim, born a Muslim, but entering into Islam, and they may have some issues with family. The extended family may not be readily acceptable to that. So we have had those kind of things happening, but by and large, we have not had any persons really troubling us because of our faith.
Okay. What misconceptions, and I guess this would be for you, Farhana, what misconceptions do you think a lot of Barbadians have when it comes to the practice of Islam and the Muslim community?
Well, one of the challenges that Muslim women face especially is, and they've come to us about it, is when they have to go into the public wearing a scarf or wearing a face veil. A lot of Muslim women said they have issues when they're catching the bus or going to just do daily business. And
what kind of issues?
Well, persons just discriminating against them, some not being allowed to catch the bus, some being, when they're catching the bus, they said that they need to be checked, and those kinds of different things.
Here in Barbados and the Caribbean?
Here in Barbados. And what we find also is that it's oftentimes towards women who may be of black descent because of this association that Muslim women should be Indian, and they're saying, okay, this is not your culture, this is not your religion, and it's very unfortunate that they would be faced with these kinds of issues as well. And I mean, where we understand that we dress differently, and in some settings we understand that we might need to conform to certain things. However, the manner in which it is approached, sometimes it could be embarrassing for the Muslim women when confronted, or it's done in a way that is, very argumentative. And, it's an appeal to those who work in public sectors or who, deal with people or Muslim women on a daily basis to just be a little bit more understanding. And if you want to discuss an issue or have a problem, just approach it in a way that is more,
humane and sensitive. Why do you think there's so many people that confuse the practice of Islam with quote-unquote terrorism?
I think it comes down a lot to what is being promoted in the media, and plus what Muslims themselves are doing in some instances. But by and large, you find, especially in the Western media, the tendency really to, anytime there's an act, terrorist act or whatever, and if it is supposed to be carried out by a Muslim, they tend to then link that with Islam, even though Muslims by and large in the world do not support those types of acts. I mean, we have...
Yeah, because people don't blame, the majority of people don't blame slavery on Christianity.
Exactly. Or you hear of another terrorist act, maybe not done by a Muslim, but you don't even know the religion of that individual. There's so many acts of barbarism and stuff that have taken place, but you don't even know what even religion that was. So generally they tend to link it with Islam, either because a group that claims to be Muslim says, well, we take responsibility, or the individual say, well, I'm a Muslim, and so on. But the point is that Muslims by and large will condemn these acts, and we have. I mean, over the time, Paris, the last one, people came out united in their condemnation of it. I mean, Muslim countries are themselves fighting internally against terrorist acts. I mean, you had just before Paris, you had Beirut, you had Baghdad. Just before that, you had Kenya. So you have had countries that have had terrorist acts, bombings, unfortunate deaths, people innocently being killed, and it's happening all the time, and they have to deal with it themselves. In fact, ISIS is reported to have killed more Muslims than they've killed people who are not a Muslim.
What is your view of what ISIS is?
Well, if you have to go back maybe a couple of years, the whole political situation in the Middle East, where you have Arab Springs, and then you had reportedly certain influence and preference by the Western powers of one regime over another, and then you had the breakaways. So you have a particular group who's probably trying to fight and establish the government, then they break away with their own agenda, and all of a sudden you have a loose cannon. And basically it's happened over and over again. History's created itself. I mean, for example, a few years back, Osama bin Laden, he was once an ally in the fight against the Russians in Afghanistan. At the end of the war, he became a person without a mission or a home, and a loose cannon, so to speak. And it's happened again, where you have groups are being supported against in Syria, the government there, and then they moved off their own agenda, and now you pretty much have a loose cannon difficult to control, and that's what's happening. And
so it's more a political agenda that they're polishing by saying this is a matter of religion.
Correct.
Okay, what would you like the Caribbean public to be more aware of from this interview as it relates to the practice of Islam in the Caribbean?
Sometimes that's the misconception that women are forced in Islam to do things. The other thing is there's a general feeling that all Muslims around the world know each other. So it must be that if terrorists are happening, there must be terrorists among us. And that's again a misconception, because everybody can't, there are over 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, and we can't know everyone. And furthermore, generally speaking, in Barbados, especially in a minority group, we tend to know each other. So we know if there is people among us that have that kind of crazy thinking, and automatically the mosque will deal with it in terms of lectures and so on. In bigger societies like Trinidad and so on, I know that they do have issues with people who have gone off and joined. But it's not that they have a connection with the community. Yeah. And so we don't have that connection necessarily. We may belong to the same faith, but we don't have that connection with those types of groups and so on. And those are the type of misconceptions that are generally having.
And to close off, I guess you could say that, as a minority in society, people usually look at Muslim individuals and judge what they see as Islam. And we as human beings, I went through the list of traits and characters and what Islam believes and stands for. But as human beings, some of us, or all of us, don't comply to everything. So some have a person who might get angry on the road and put the horn and let someone or say something in a rough manner. That is not Islam. I mean, but as humans, we make errors. So if you really want to know Islam, don't necessarily just stereotype what you see from Muslim and say that is Islam, whether it's internationally in terms of terrorism or even the character or traits. Yeah, there are all kinds of people. We have human beings at first, but if you really study Islam, you must sometimes we tell people forget what you see in Muslim and go read what Islam is supposed to be.
Yes.
If you really want to know Islam.
So thank you so much for joining me. It has been great time having tea time with you, and I'm very, very happy to have had this discussion. Thank you so much for watching. Assalamu alaikum. Good night. Wait, were you up in that age?
Yeah.
Well, you look very good.
Merci beaucoup. That's all right. That's all right. But your mother looks like 40.
So you say.